The spotlight continues to fall on St. Lucie during the month of January as we celebrate We Gatherin 2025, a year-long program that honors and celebrates our history, our culture, and our people. Known for its breathtaking landscapes and strong sense of community, St. Lucie has delivered an unforgettable experience while sharing its rich heritage and vibrant spirit. I'm Joshua Hinkson. Thanks for joining us. On Saturday, January 26, the festivities continued at the Checker Hall playing field as that community came alive with a number of events. The Northern Flea Market was more than just a marketplace. It was a celebration of enfranchisement and entertainment for the people of St. Lucie and beyond. It provided local vendors, artisans, and entrepreneurs with the opportunity to share their talents and products. From handcrafted goods to locally grown produce, the market was a hub of creativity and commerce, fostering economic inclusion and support for small businesses. At the same time, it was a space of joy and connection, with lively entertainment and cultural displays bringing people together to celebrate the rich heritage and vibrant energy of St. Lucie. Parliamentary Representative Peter Phillips endorsed the initiative organized by a young entrepreneur.
This is an event which we have a number of vendors here today, vendors of all types selling food, craft, snow cones, clothing, whatever you can think of. This is what I say We Gatherin is all about, giving opportunity. And we are promoting this event. It is held by a young lady called Zaria Griffith. And what we've seen a number of persons who have come out here today to ply their trade, giving them the opportunity to make that much needed dollar.
This is an initiative that I would have started in 2022, and just to get local vendors, entrepreneurs to come together and to showcase their products. And for me to have something in the North for the people of the North. The response wasn't a bad response. I would say it was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress to get it together, but I am happy at the end of the day that it's actually done, and I could see the results of the hard work that I put in. I am also passionate about personal development. People will tell me that I'm wise beyond my years, so I'm passionate about personal development, organizing, planning, and seeing people become their best self. So it's just an idea that I have, so I will take the lead just to show young people that they could do anything that they want to do. So I had the idea and I just did it because I was at home. I think a lot, I journal a lot, again, personal development. So I just had the idea and I just executed it, because when you have the idea, it's best to just execute it and don't sleep on your dreams and your ideas.
In addition to entertaining and enfranchising St. Lucie residents, the Northern Flea Market welcomed parishioners and Barbadians from across the island to engage with the National Task Force on Literacy Education at their community pop-up. This unique initiative provided an invaluable opportunity to spotlight the importance of reading and lifelong learning. Shelley Boyce and Dr. Zoan Evans, both passionate advocates for literacy, were on hand to share their expertise and display their works to inspire attendees. Through their engaging discussions and interactive activities, they highlighted the transformative power of literacy and its role in shaping stronger, more empowered communities.
You know, we can't begin education or reading in the middle. We can't begin it in class 4. We can't begin reading at the secondary level. We have to touch the nursery schools and even the daycare. And how do we do that? We are here to champion reading. We are here to champion books, because although we've got several pieces of technology and strategies on technology, we have to get the real thing in hand, the book. We know that young children learn best by doing. Young children learn best through their senses, and not only looking at the screen, a television, or a laptop. That is vicarious experiences. We want first-hand experiences, so we can't throw away the book. If you're using the technology, you use the book along with the technology. And right here on my shoulder is a firefighter. Why is he here? He is here to stimulate the children, to get them thinking and get them talking, because reading begins with a conversation, and what you say can be written down, and what is written down can be read. So you can create your own stories in your own way, in your own book.
So this book, Tamisha's Adventure, was my attempt to get Barbadian children acquainted with their history and to love education, because Tamisha, the protagonist, hates school. She has the ability, but she doesn't realize how much went into getting her that free education that she takes for granted. And as someone who taught in the public school system for 16 years, I saw it daily. Children who did not take education seriously, parents who did not enforce it the way they should, and it was very disturbing and distressing to watch, because we have bright children who are wasting their gifts and talents because no one is really understanding. And when I say no one, too many parents are not understanding. Sometimes they have to work long hours and they're not able to sit with their children like my parents did when we were younger. And or sometimes they just do not see the value of education and the importance. And back in the day, when Hilton Bond was a boy and Carl Seeley and all of these writers were boys, education was seen as a means of upward mobility, and it was taken very seriously, and it still is a means of upward mobility. And I always tell my students that it is only in the dictionary that success comes before work. You have to put in the work.
But like the firefighter, their book's on fire. And recently we have got fires raging in the United States, and what a lovely way for the schools to engage the children in an activity. I pretend the firefighter, what equipment does he need? We're going to the book to read about fire and the firefighters' work. The community helpers is a big part of the curriculum on early childhood education. So I would recommend that every school have in their resource bank puppets. Today we saw children of all ages coming to our location and engaging in puppetry and talking. And then every puppet is matched by a book. So then this is the attention getter to get you into the book. So therefore the conversation starts, and the adult is there to guide, there to point out words in the book, to point out vocabulary, sentences. So therefore, I want to emphasize to Barbados and to the parents at home and to households, let the children see you reading. Let the children see you reading books. Work with the book along with the laptop, along with all the strategies in tech. But young children learn best by doing and first-hand experiences, and therefore turning pages is a skill.
The writers of today really owe a debt to the writers of yesteryear. They laid the foundation, and the writers that we have today are really there and able to flourish because of those early writers who fought against a lot of, I don't want to call it discrimination, but it was, early writing was seen by Barbadian and West Indian writers was not seen as something wholesome. Only writing coming out of England at the time was seen as worthy of note. So these guys, these early guys, they broke with tradition and they introduced Barbadian themes and local imagery and flora and fauna. And you know, we think that the writers of today are the ones who broke that ceiling, but no, it goes back to the 1930s, when in 1932, William Seymour Arthur called for textbooks that carried local themes and subject matter in the schools. So it was as far back as then, but we have forgotten those early writers, and I wanted to bring them to the fore so that they would no longer be forgotten.
So I am here with Dr. Sylvia Henry, I am here with the resources of the Maria Holder Sharon School, a school at which I was principal for 13 years. I am now retired, so therefore I must thank the principal, Mrs. Husbands Brown, for allowing me to use the materials of the Maria Holder Sharon, and also for the insight from Dr. Henry for including early childhood education, the activities, the puzzles, the conversations, the listening and the speaking. So this is where reading begins. This is where reading begins. And I would advocate for each school to have a library in early childhood classrooms. I would advocate for the libraries in the primary school, the infant departments as well, and first-hand experiences to get them stimulated, interested, and just ready to go.
The importance of literacy education. At the heart of the flea market was the Genealogy Marketplace, a space dedicated to helping patrons uncover their roots and celebrate their heritage. This unique feature offered workshops and presentations on ancestry research, giving participants the tools to trace their lineage and explore family ties. Visitors also had the opportunity to engage with staff from the Archives Department, who provided expert guidance and access to resources for delving into personal and Barbadian history.
All of the booths are filled. Our people from the Archives doing a very good job as usual. Every time we come out to these events, we always come with a very experienced set of people, and people are gradually, warming to the whole experience of learning about their ancestors. Of course, along the way, we are giving them a little bit of history of the island, of course, because that is included. And generally, I have nothing but, I'm just very happy to see how the public is responding to our initiative, not only at Regathering, but whenever we have the genealogy marketplace.
The response has been very positive. Persons usually want to find out about their ancestry because it informs their identity. It's grounded in where you come from. They want to know their family ties. In St. Lucie, we know about the Babs, the Boynes, the Griffiths, the Yearwoods, the Graves, right? So they want to establish those linkages and want to know their family connections. So they come to get that immersion of culture, of education, of ancestry, and of course, community engagement, because it's nothing without the community.
We also have the Archives presenting a lecture and going about the family research and things like that. So yeah, I'm happy. Good. And I'm looking forward to the other regatherings in the other parishes. And of course, the Archives will be there to showcase what we do here in Barbados, our importance to history in this country, not just family history, but the general history of our island.
First, we want to find out, our ancestry and everything. So the process that we went through was to get at least a name, year of birth, marriage, or whatever. And then we found the reference, and we were told then that we can work backwards from there. We knew ourselves to be Yearwoods from our father's side and going backwards. But then from the mother's side, we were Coggins and Coggin before the S.
But note that Coggin, we place it in Durham, which ties back to England.
The thing is that we have heard about a Coggin spawn in St. Andrew, where a person would have died. And it's strange to us, this genealogy thing would lead us to find out whether there was some relation in that drawing in Coggin spawn in St. Andrew.
But there are other persons also in that area now that are Coggin as well, but that has an S. So with these changes, some people, depending on how they are registered, priest at the time or rector make their changes and then you end up with a different name. But that's from the father side, right? And it's interesting too because my father's mother was originally a Yehud. Then she married Jackman, which was my father's father. And after that she married a Yehud again, so she ended up being a Yehud. When you're doing research, you've got to be very meticulous and, you know, and direct. You must have a focus and know where you're going because you end up with the same name again and it's a different side, you know.
A very exciting exercise, I find.
Yeah, when you actually find something, that's where the
excitement comes.
Then you go on next.
So I encourage you to go on and
go on. You encourage us to go on a little bit further.
So do you plan to do that?
Yes, I have already spoken to the lady, so hopefully on Monday we will give her a call so that we can get the process moving again.
And St. Lucie is steeped in history. You know, an occasion like this, you know, yes, the month is about St. Lucie, but there is much more that we can share about St. Lucie, and it will take much more than a month. You know, as I said, this is the first time for the year. With this regathering, this first occasion in St. Lucie. But I'm looking forward to. I watched the event at Archers Bay. It's a picturesque location, and ripe for development as a place for recreation for Barbadians again. So, you know, it exposes the scenic beauty of the parish, the history of the parish, but there is much more to St. Lucie, and these occasions really bring out that aspect of our island. So I'm looking forward to all of the events,
As we move forward and we look into further development in St. Lucie, we'll be looking at the Harrison Point Lighthouse because we want to create St. Lucie, create those venues, those areas where persons can come from all over Barbados and visit and enjoy St. Lucie. That is extremely important. Generate revenue, economic activity within the parish. That is what Regathering is about. And we have seen a number of vendors out during the course of this whole month. We've generated some economic activity, and during the course of the month we've had karaoke and limes and so on, which is small shop owners would have been able, where the venues where these things were held would have been able to realize some funds in the coffers. That is what it's about, and not only about getting funds in the coffers, but giving opportunity for persons outside of St. Lucie to learn St. Lucie, to know where they can find different things, different businesses and so on in St. Lucie. And that is absolutely important, because once we finish this month, I believe and I know that persons would have learned new things about St. Lucie, would have learned where you can find certain businesses and so on in St. Lucie. And that is the key to the Regathering project.
This initiative has brought communities together to reflect on their shared heritage, celebrate their cultural identity, and inspire collective action for the future. One powerful symbol of this shared history is the iconic standpipe, a fixture in Barbadian communities for generations. In years past, the standpipe wasn't just a source of water. It was a gathering place, a hub for stories, laughter, and connection. This is exactly why the University of the West Indies has dubbed their lecture series Standpipe Stories. Dr. Carter?
Today we kickstart our lecture series called Standpipe Stories. This is a lecture on each parish, in each parish. So we start today with St. Lucie, a lecture on the history of St. Lucie, the culture of St. Lucie, the natural beauty of St. Lucie. And today, Dr. Tara Ennis will present that lecture in a few moments. But I want to say a little bit about the concept of the standpipe. Now, nearly every village in the 1950s and 1960s had a standpipe. simply because most homes did not have standpipes or water, really. So you had to go to the standpipe for your water. And then some people enjoyed going to the standpipe to bathe. Anybody can remember going to the standpipe for water? Not to bathe, for water. Good. Now, we had a standpipe in front of our house. In front of our house in a place called Briggs Hill in St. George. And we used to assemble at the standpipe to tell stories and to hear stories, but also to gossip as well. People used to go to the standpipe to talk about other people. You hear so-and-so about somebody. And then I'm told that people used to go to the standpipe and they would fight as well, because if you got there first, somebody would push you out or push your bucket aside and get water and go. And that caused a lot of fights. But the standpipe was also a place of gathering to hear boxing events. So somebody would have a radio, and perhaps the only radio in the village, and you would turn up that radio and people would gather in there to listen to cricket, to listen to boxing, to listen to an important event. So the standpipe, therefore, was an institution that has now disappeared. So we thought as a campus that we would have our series named Standpipe Stories. In other words, to tell all of those stories about the parish, starting with the parish of St. Lucy, talking about its history, talking about its culture. So we have a lecturer to do that. But it is also an opportunity for you to tell your own stories about the parish. So at the end of the lecture, I want somebody or 2 or 3 persons to come forward and say anything that they've heard or that was passed down about St. Lucy. Because the object is to gather all of those stories, and at the end of the year, 2025, we will have 11 stories from all the parishes. And we put that into a book and distribute it for everybody, so that each parish's history will be recorded. So that is the idea here. So we want to hear your stories, but we also want to research, and Dr. Innes has done her research, and she's now prepared to tell the stories that a lot of people may not know. Now let me introduce Dr. Innes. Dr. Innes is lecturer in history in the Department of History, Philosophy, and Psychology, UWI Cave campus. She teaches 2 important courses. There's a course called The History of Medicine, taught by Dr. Innes, and medical students also take it. She also teaches a course called The Evolution of Social Policy in Barbados. In addition to that, Dr. Innes is a published author. You would have seen that big book. I think we have it here, Dr. Innes. Where is it? Anyhow, this big book called Place Names of Barbados, of Halls, Holes, and Hills. Dr. Innes is one of the contributors to that book. All right? Dr. Innes has also researched the history and the heritage of Bridgetown and its garrison, and was a lead delegate when Barbados went to Paris to present that story for the nomination, that World Heritage nomination in 2011. And she also is the lead historian and researcher for our second bid, our second World Heritage bid, and that is for the story of sugar and rum, the industrial heritage of Barbados. So beyond teaching, historians at the campus are into public research and public history. And this is an opportunity for us as a campus to reach out into the public, to present a lecture, and also to hear you. So without any further ado, I welcome Dr. Tara Ennis to deliver the first in the series of Standpipe Stories, St. Lucia. Give her a round of applause as she comes.
So now I'll try my best. I might take you through some of the same stories of St. Lucie lore, but I will also add a bit more as well. I want to share some of the many insights we have into St. Lucie's contributions to the development of Barbados's natural and cultural landscapes and what we can do to protect them, but also leverage that protection to our advantage. St. Lucie, of course, is the most northern parish on the island of Barbados and is roughly 30 kilometers from Bridgetown and has the fortunate or unfortunate moniker, as everybody knows, the parish behind God's back, right? According to Woodville Marshall, the parish is the 6th largest at just over 8,700 acres. However, was one of the lowest population densities in the island. Dominated by sugar cultivation during the colonial period, the parish also shares a similar non-sugar cultivation experience as Christchurch and St. Philip, growing less intensive, smaller cash crops like cotton, ginger, aloes as well. Geographically, St. Lucie has different soil types and depths that has resulted in a marked distinction between successful sugar cultivation and less intensive smaller holdings. Marshall states that the lowland plateau with its more fertile soils was home to the largest and more successful sugar plantations such as Pickering's, Hannay's, Bromefield. Is it Bromefield or Broomfield? Bromefield, okay. Mount Gay. While the St. Lucie Plain possesses shallow black soil and experiences a marked dry season. It does not escape me that we have titled this lecture the Standpipe Lecture Series, and given the almost perennial water challenges in St. Lucie, it was interesting to me that in my research for this lecture that the standpipe kept coming up as a space where many a tale could be spun around the relationship to water access or the standpipe. After the cholera epidemic in 1854, about 49 standpipes out of the 400 that were installed around the island were located in St. Lucie. In the 1990s, anthropologists recorded that almost every elderly villager had to head water long distances to home for their families to have access to clean water. And I quote, virtually every villager over the age of 75 remembers balancing a heavy bucket on his or her head with only a cloth pad for cushioning or a palm frond or leafy branch on top to keep it from sloshing out. One informant reported that the load was so heavy that it caused their heads to ache. Water was then poured out into a 50-gallon drum at home, and during crop time, the plantations demanded so much water that the standpipes ran dry. People in communities would stand ready to report when the water started to flow again by the standpipe, and of course, there was little piped water to homes, so people did their washing and bathed by the standpipe, often with little privacy. Today, this household water supply has been a perennial challenge in St. Lucie due to the country's aging water distribution network, but also related to the poor water governance structures that have not allowed for equitable distribution of this resource over time. However, I understand from a colleague that some long-standing issues are being addressed, but it will take some time for those measures to take hold through a combination of mains replacement, more water reservoirs and catchment facilities and their management, and possibly desalination. Of course, in the past, Barbados had many more human-made ponds for irrigation on estates, and now the largely aquifer source water is a scarce resource on an island that services households, businesses, agriculture, and a growing tourism industry. We will have to find a way to balance conservation and equitable distribution in our small island. Beyond this, I was also struck in some of my research for this lecture that there were pockets of communities in St. Lucie which did not even have electricity until the early 1990s. I also found many historic complaints of lack of access to public transportation, and I'm sure that many a tale could be spun around these issues at the historic standpipe, so I won't digress. The coastline with its rugged cliffs and thrashing seas are a favorite for whale watchers in the season, as well as brave surfers. The cliffs are penetrated with well-known sea caves like Animal Flower Cave and blowholes, but we also have some of the most beautiful accessible shorelines with small bays and points. Like much of the island's coastline, St. Lucie was inhabited by communities of indigenous peoples, which is evidenced by the numerous pieces of ceramic artifacts that still can be found along the coves and inlets that dot St. Lucie's coastline. The only known example on the island of indigenous petroglyphs, I remember Dr. Watson said, can be found in the Spring Head Cave in St. Lucie. Even though we might consider St. Lucie to be a bit far out, in the 17th century, it was immediately valued for sugar cultivation and settlement, making it one of Governor Tufton's original 6 parishes in 1629. The parish church was functioning before 1629, and Woodville Marshall contends that by the 1630s, parts of St. Peter and St. Lucie were joined in making the parish of St. Andrew. But he could not enlighten us further on the selection of the name, as it's the only parish name for a female saint. Peter Campbell had earlier stated that perhaps it was a connection to St. Lucia. And there are only a handful of St. Lucie's or St. Lucia's references in the United Kingdom, and none so far pan out as a direct link for the use of the name in Barbados. The population in St. Lucie has grown incrementally since 1773, when it was just below 7,000 persons. 100 years later, it had grown to by almost another 2,000 people, and by 2010, the population was just under 10,000 persons. I spoke a little bit about my own roots in the parish. Mine stretch out back about 3 to 4 generations at both extremes of the island, so St. Lucie in the north and St. John and St. Philip to the south and east. My paternal great-grandmother was a Springer. Any Springers in the house? No Springers? What? Okay. Her father was a herdsman at Fairfield, and likely the illegitimate grandson of Horatio N. Springer, a planter here in the parish. That research took my family back to just after emancipation, but that little bit of research gives us some insight into the demography of the parish. Most of the people in this parish descend from long lines of families born and bred in the parish up to at least emancipation, full emancipation in 1838. After emancipation, the formerly enslaved continued to eke out an existence here, working mostly for the larger plantations in the parish. However, as the sugar economy started to decline, so did opportunities for steady employment. So alternatives were found in Bridgetown and then in out-migration from the island. It is at this point, like in my own family, that people moved out of the parish and then found themselves living and working near Bridgetown and even beyond Barbados's shores. And that trend has obviously continued. In the parish behind God's Back in circa the 1990s, it was reported that 25% of households in St. Lucie had a child living abroad. However, unlike St. Philip, which has become the parish of choice for Barbadians to own and build their own homes, St. Lucie has not produced a similar alternative. So I was wondering how many of you here today are generations born in St. Lucie? How many of you? And going back far, far, far. Okay, good. We have stories to tell at the end. Yeah. Okay. I should note that being able to access family archives or archives for family research is of key importance to our right to access information. This is research that is possible for us to do with access to archives and online sources, and I'm glad that an important part of the engagement here today is with the Barbados Department of Archives. They've really worked hard over the last year to really come back from a devastating fire last summer, and I just want to give the archives, anybody here from the archives, a big clap. And it is my sincere wish that they open, even in a limited capacity since the fire, to help provide much needed services to researchers, especially those doing family history research. This afternoon, I am going to explore some well-known and even lesser-known stories of St. Lucie. We'll look at some aspects of the parish's social and economic development, but I will also focus some attention on the tangible and intangible cultural heritage of the parish, because the stories that originate in St. Lucie resonate with the rest of the island. Let's move to built heritage now. St. Lucie is known for its rugged beauty, if not for its slight isolation from the rest of the island. It has fairly typical examples of built heritage throughout, one or two remaining slave huts or militia or storm housing, if not completely abandoned or destroyed. Several Anglican churches can be found throughout the parish, several of them at one point or the other being affected by natural disasters such as hurricanes. There are also newer denominations present here as well that require documentation, and it is also home to the birthplace of at least one national hero, the Right Excellent Errol Barrow. Nesfield, which is currently in ruins, but a plaque was installed there in 2020 during the last parish celebrations for Gatherin. Harrison's Point Lighthouse, built in 1925, stands fairly isolated and forgotten on the northern coastline. The nearby Harrison Point Isolation Facility last saw action for the T20 cricket tournament last summer, when it was reactivated for the possible patient overflow if QEH became inundated with sick cases. And of course, this was the location for all of the COVID-19 isolation during what stopped us the last time from celebrating Gatherin, right? However, in 2022, it was announced that it may be used for medical tourism if the right investor was found, but I don't think that has happened yet. But did you know that one of the sites on the UNESCO World Heritage tentative list includes a parish-based business? Does anybody know what site in St. Lucie is on the UNESCO World Heritage tentative list? Mount Gay, right. Mount Gay Distilleries in St. Lucie is an important part of the parish's landscape, where successive generations of residents have worked, helping to make some of the most prized spirits in the rum world. But beyond the built heritage that is such a prominent part of our landscape, with either crumbling or restored so-called great houses, we also have to be aware of the contributions of working Barbadians to the landscape, not only in their craftsmanship of great houses, factories, windmills. We must also note the development of villages and tenantries on our landscape, which include examples of chattel houses and traditional rum shops. We must take stock of what exists on our landscape and ensure that, along with protection of our heritage, we also think of the transportation system and people's access to services and amenities. We must ensure that policies that we use now or enact in the future do not lead to social exclusion by allowing our communities to have access to recreational and civic spaces, including beaches and coastal areas. So now I want to just move into intangible cultural heritage. Has anybody ever heard of intangible cultural heritage? No? Okay. It's really what is called living heritage, right? According to Article 2 of the Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, the intangible cultural heritage means the practices, representations, expressions, knowledge, skills, as well as the instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces associated with them, that communities, groups, and in some cases, individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage. So now we have to ask ourselves, who are St. Lucie's intangible cultural heritage knowledge bearers? So if we return to the world of sugar and rum, we note that many knowledge bearers and their craft throughout the colonial and post-colonial worlds are right here in this parish. So these traditions are here. So the knowledge of distilling, aging, and blending Barbadian rum, and all of the knowledge that goes into that, very expert knowledge. I mean, you can have a chemistry degree, but you're not Trudy Ann, right? You're not Trudy Ann Banker, and who can go through the bonds and choose a barrel and make it come out to taste just like Mount Gay Eclipse is supposed to taste and Mount Gay Extra Old. So that's a very, very specific knowledge set that our distillers and aged blenders have. And I would have to say too, and she would say as well, it's also the workers and all of that kind of cumulative knowledge that has helped shape the brand as well. So I know that, for example, the coffee still could not have been put together to be put back into production at Mount Gay had it not been for the knowledge of one of their workers, Blues, right, who subsequently passed away. So then you have to keep that knowledge going. It's very, very important. So that would make a lovely nomination. We also have a lot of African rituals around rum. So libation pouring, when you visit a graveyard, for example, sometimes you pour a little for the ancestors, this kind of thing. It's used in ritual ceremonies, even amongst spiritual Baptists, etc. For crop over, and I'm going to get to an example of crop over shortly, all the medicinal and scientific knowledge around rum. I know, well, my grandmother used to have brandy under her bed, but many a person had bay rum or had a bottle of rum to help with some kind of ailment that they had. All of the pottery making that went into rum production, sugar and rum production. Basket making in the past. Talked about the dung baskets before, the Bajan rum shop, right? Cooperage. Frederick Aline has done some lovely research on coopers in Barbados. Cocktail making, right? Now, I grew up in Canada, I didn't grow up here, but my father insisted on using Barbadian rum, obviously, for making his cocktails, right? And his cocktail making was an art for him. And that took him back to his childhood. It's our family recipe for a rum punch, etc. that keeps going. My sister is claiming full intellectual property on it at the moment, but I mean, it is our family recipe. She can't just take it and thing. But anyways, the culinary as well. So using rum to set cakes. All of these things are really, really important to document and to appreciate. One of our earliest known references to our celebrations for crop over actually takes place in St. Lucie at Mount Gay Plantation. The harvest home or crop over celebration marked the end of the sugar crop, and with official activities being held in the plantation yard and separate activities continued in the villages. Planters engaged the services of enslaved musicians to provide music and dancing for the celebrations, and at Mount Gay Plantation in 1828, the sum of 12 shillings was paid to musicians for music for the Negroes to dance at their harvest home. That's a quotation. Basket making and pottery were essential skills needed for the cultivation and manufacture of sugar, and these are skills that are still practiced using local grasses and plants and mined clay on the island. So how do we leverage St. Lucie's heritage? Well, first we must work really hard to protect it. I provided you with many examples of our natural and cultural heritage in St. Lucie that is deserving of special note and interpretation. But for it to be leveraged, perhaps even economically, it has to be protected in terms of our natural and cultural heritage sites and safeguarded in terms of our living cultural heritage. And like many, I contend that it has to be protected and safeguarded for Barbadians first. For Barbadians first. Meaning that we are the ones who have to recognize the intrinsic value of what we have before others do. We have to be the first, and to be crude, consumers of our own culture. We have been endowed with a painful history that has been born out of hardship, but we have also produced world-class love products that speak to a resilience and craftsmanship that could only have been shaped through our relationship with the environment. Culture and nature must coexist in a small island like Barbados. So we have to find ways in which we relate to our own spaces in new ways without feeling the alienation of not being welcome on our own shores. We do it for ourselves first, always. I have found that humans from all around the world, are attracted to cultures who take time to honor themselves first. All the rest comes next fairly naturally. In working on this lecture, I've noted the experience of loss on our landscape, loss of habitat, loss of species, loss of built heritage due to hurricanes and neglect, loss of folk knowledge, the loss of our stories, Loss is something that can only be accounted for when we know that it's gone missing. And we have not even done a good job documenting what we have and ensuring that by repeating these stories, they stay with us either tangibly or at least in memory. We have to do a better job in sustaining what we have through use, not exploitation. Letting something deteriorate so that it can be merely replaced by a plaque to something we did not truly value is not protection. It is just creating a monument to something that we did not value. If we only blink, we will not see the God Horse, the Fouillette, the Curlew, Bird Rock, the lighthouse, the churches, the sea cave, the homes of our national heroes, the stories, good and bad. We will not even see the standpipe. How many of you have seen a standpipe in St. Lucie still? Because they've been routinely rooting them out across the island. And I would actually move that they need to at least retain a few in each parish so people recall what that memory is all about. But sadly in this story, we will also not see ourselves. And I don't think that this is the legacy we really want to gather around. So protection doesn't really start with only policy. It also requires people. People who care, people who are skilled, people who will manage. Those people are young people. And my goal is to create opportunities for young people in the heritage industry that is both ethical and professional. This is no longer about one or two people standing up to say something shouldn't be torn down. This is about creating a highly skilled professional workforce which can document, conserve, and manage their heritage resources, both natural and cultural. We have done a great job creating a demand for these skills in the natural heritage management, especially through CERMES at the university, but we have not done the same for our cultural resources. History and heritage need a firm, unmovable place in our education system as a pillar of that education system, even as we move to transform it. We can certainly do more to see ourselves as part of the landscape and not just as a product of it. So I'm looking forward to learning more about your own stories this afternoon and maybe riffing off of some of the ones that I shared with you. I can't pretend to know everything there is to know about St. Lucie, but I really open the floor now to you all to share your stories. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Innes. Well, St. Lucie resident Joel Headley recounted his standpipe stories.
I grew up on Josie Hill in St. Lucie, and I view the standpipe experience in a positive light because they help to build character, in my view, good time management, and it was good physical exercise. We had 4 standpipes, one by the Bakers, the Cullimores, and the Clarks, one on the Large Hill where the bus turns around, one by, we call Leslie Corner, near the Pentecostal Church, and then one at Peters's Road. I frequented the one with Peters's Road. But each standpipe had its own ethos or character. For example, the one by the Cullimores, Mr. Cullimore was a stick licker. And he always came to the pipe with his stick. And of course, he always had the preference to use the pipe. The pipes were used for fetching water to fill up the can. Most houses did not have running water. So you had in most part, a 50-gallon drum. And you would top that up every morning. You would bathe before you go to school. Then you would wash. And then later in the day, the stocks, you would bring a bucket or a pan, and then the animals would come and drink. And there was a certain order, that's why I said character, because around 5 o'clock, 5 times the cocks crow, you hear people moving back saying, "Hoo-hoo," and waking people up. And the ones going to the plantation, they would catch water first. And then, for the most part, 2 children are the ones who had to bring water. So the ones who had to catch the school bus, they would go first, bathe, go off. The ones to walk down to St. Clement's, then they would catch and so on, and then who want to wash would go after them, and so on and so on and so on. But in terms of anecdotal stories, quite often when you see an adult turns up with a child, you know there's a dispute. And it would start with somebody bucket getting kicked over with the foot, and then somebody get beat with the bucket. And because the children started with a paint skillet, and then you graduate to a basin or a pail, and then the 5-gallon meat drums. So if you get beat with a 5-gallon drum, you know, you're hurt. And you had to do something really egregious to earn that. But that's how they settled disputes, based on what my mother told me. I only saw one instance of that. But for the most part, they were peaceful. And this is a true story, I worked in another island which was hit with a hurricane. And we had electricity for about 8 weeks. And one of my colleagues laughed at me saying, oh, I work in a bank and I bring water on my head and so on. Because we had to bring water from a cistern. But I said to him, you know, the problem is you do not know the technique in doing this. Because the carrying water helped build posture, but it was a technique. You had to lift the bucket to your knee, from your knee to your shoulder, and your shoulder to your head. And then and you took pride in walking with it, being balanced and the water being spilled. So I had to give him and some others a lesson in carrying water on their heads. And I said, thank God for this standpipe. Yeah. Because if you notice that in St. Lucie, a lot of us walk very upright. And it's from carrying the bucket on your head, and it helps with your posture, You know? So I never saw it in a negative light. You got to socialize. You had to make sure you manage your time because you can't let the school bus leave you. So you had to get up, bring your 4 or 5 buckets of water, fill up the can, carry the sheep, wash down the pig pen, get ready, and down the hill to catch the bus. And invariably, and the other thing with the pipes too, somebody mentioned it earlier, during the crop season, the sugarcane harvesting season, the pipes would go off. And the one by Leslie Corner would be the one with running water most of the time. If that goes off, we had to go down through Lowland Hill, down to where Ignatius Bio School is now, to catch water and trek through that hill. Again, you had to have some stamina to be back and forth because sometimes you make 2 or 3 trips. And then you have to go and wait your turn. So you had to learn some patience. And the ones down the hill tend to be a little more bellicose than the ones up top. Right? So you might get pushed or get a knock. And we had no cell phones in those days, but if you misbehave at the pipe, by the time you get home, your mother will know. Right? So, in all, I think it was a valuable experience. I reminisce on the days when we called St. Lucie water government juice, coming from the standpoint. I won't comment on anything else, but for me, it was a good experience.
I think this event tonight has urged us to do 4 things. 1, to try to discover the possibilities in this parish. And there are lots of possibilities, especially heritage possibilities in the parish. And I'm thinking of the proposal to create a park at Archer's Bay. And Archer's Bay was a big excursion site through the 40s, 50s, 60s, into the 1970s. And I think this is a distinct possibility where we could have a big park with all the facilities where people could come and relax and enjoy this refreshing breeze. You know, when you're in St. Lucie, you're in a different place. I'm serious, you are in a different place. The atmosphere is so wonderful. I mean, really wonderful. I really enjoy St. Lucie. I didn't enjoy playing cricket in St. Lucie because I could never get runs in St. Lucie. So the last time I played here, I think I scored not. And I believe it was the wind. The wind coming across and blowing the ball back. I just couldn't get any runs. But anyhow, I really love St. Lucie. But the second thing about these parish talks is this, that we get to discover the beauty and the richness of our parish. St. Lucie, if you were to get a drone and start at River Bay and come this way, you will see those indentations, the inlets, the rivers, the cliffs. It is really beautiful. And if you were to do the same from the west as well. So there's a lot of beauty. And I believe that we ought to employ a lot more drone technology to try to capture that beauty. And the third thing is that I understand from the Prime Minister that the parish talks are going to be developmental and not just a forum to complain about potholes. So, I really love that. In other words, how can we fix those potholes? How can we get out there and fix St. Lucie or help the government to fix St. Lucie? And that is where we have to go. In other words, all of us must put our hands to the plow and not say, well, that's the government. That's what civil servants to do. All of us must put our hands to the plow to make this country what it ought to be.
Through We Gathering, that same spirit of unity is being reignited, reminding us of the importance of coming together to preserve our heritage and build a stronger, brighter future. This is St. Lucie. This is We Gathering.
3, 2, 1. We Gathering!